by this thing called the Callahan Law. And it was a guy named Callahan, and he would rather stay on the street than in the shelter. And right before he got his benefits, he died. And they did this big, huge investigation. And they're like, don't record us. It says you can't record us. I'm like, those are our HIPAA rights that you use to keep you from being accountable from doing shit like this. The program director at BRC, Bowery Residence Committee, at Jack Ryan, removed an immigrant that they had there for 2 years. The program director came. Oh, they called the police to remove him, and I called the police on them making false police reports. So the police didn't come for hours, and they didn't know why. Like, the only thing you can get without a problem is toilet paper. You can't, like, if you ask for soap or a pillow or a sheet or a towel or enforcing rules like a corrections officer when they're supposed to be a custodian of benefits and getting these people to stability that is so diametrically opposed, it changes humans into, I don't want to say animals, but after being in these shelters for so long, you become subhuman. There's a lot of criteria, and a lot of it is the condition of the building. In rats and roaches, bugs, bed bugs. There's at the shelter I'm currently at. There's almost 200 people. They get one person out a week. They estimate over 100,000 drugs a month, $100,000 of drugs a month go through the veteran shelter. Drugs are done in the bathroom and in the cubicles, and they can smell it. And
they try to prevent it.
No, and they do let drug use go on in there freely. If you don't cause any problems, you can use as many drugs as you want in there.
Wow. In shelters?
Yes, and
does that happen?
Yes, and in the veteran shelter specifically, probably one every 2 or 3 weeks. There's video that we have of people being rolled out in body bags.
Religion, speech, press, assembly, petition. Hey, yo, my peeps. Don't give me orders, you don't tell me what to do. No, I don't need to obey.
Subscribe to the People's Podcast.
Subscribe to the People's Podcast.
Hey, yo, what's going on? What's going on, my peeps? How's everybody doing today? Welcome to the People's Podcast TV. Let's hope everybody's safe and sound, healthy above every single thing in life, my peeps. Today we have a special guest. You heard? We have a special guest. I've been telling you I'm going to be bringing you the veterans, the old school peeps that went out there and did what they did for us, the real veterans. You heard? And we're here with
Mount Lacey.
Mount Lacey, a.k.a.
the Bearded Veteran.
The Bearded Veteran. And who else is here?
Zay TV.
You heard? Shout out to Zay TV. Hey, yo, Mount Lacey, what's going on, man? How's everything doing, man? How's everything going?
Man, the last couple of days have been a whirlwind. It's been awesome.
Mount Lacey, where are you originally from?
Deltona, Florida. That's right in between Orlando and Daytona, Florida.
Deltona, between Orlando and Daytona. Were you born there?
Yes, I was. Born and raised.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Went to college at Gainesville, Florida.
Gainesville, Florida. Shout out to Gainesville, my page. So how did you end up in the Army? How did that go about? How you end up serving for the country?
I had a substitute teacher who wore his BDUs to class and told us about a bunch of benefits, and I knew I needed something to help me get me through college, and I felt that was the right way to go.
And that was out of college or like high school?
Out of high school, but helped me out with college. There is a lot of good benefits for the Army.
Is that what
I joined as the reserves, and my MOS was a pharmacy tech, and I was able to do the reserves and go to school at the same time. So
is that what drew your attention? The benefits of the
benefits, at that age, definitely. I love the country. I love America, but I wouldn't say at that age I could fully comprehend the weight of the decision, to be honest with you. I haven't left before high school. I didn't even walk on my graduation. I left 6 weeks early, and I had to fight to do that too.
Really? Why was that?
It's always over money. Finals, if you're there, they get paid, and if you're not, they don't. And it's 10% of your grade. I even had to fight. Had my recruiter and my mother show up to fight the principal and allow me to go 6 weeks early so that I could go to the normal freshman semester of college.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. So your parents, were they? Did you have a home? Were they your parents together? Mom and dad married? How was that?
I had a great childhood, man. My neighborhood, there was like 3 sets of brothers and like 3 other kids, and we grew up our whole lives together. Watching WrestleMania, playing Nintendo, to PlayStation, going through all the consoles, Manhunt at night, it was like the Wonder Years.
So out of your brothers, sisters, brothers, how many are?
I got one brother. He's 7 years older than me. His name's Jason Lacey.
Shout out to Jason, my peeps.
You're...
So did he join the army as well? Did he join? Did he serve?
No, he being 7 years older, that's a pretty big age gap. He went into restaurants. My mother was in restaurants. My grandfather was in restaurants. They had a place back in the day called the Red Snapper in Daytona Beach. So that's all, we're Greek. Cooking's in the blood. So that's how he's kind of picked his path.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your first days in the army. What you expected? How did it go? Did you like it?
How'd you feel?
Did you fit in?
I've always had a little problem with authority, but being that young, it really just kind of felt like football practice, but a lot more serious. It's physical every day. You don't even have a lot of time to think and feel. You're constantly moving and doing and then sleeping. But looking back on it, it's a priceless experience.
What year did you?
2001. 2001.
2001.
Yes, I finished basic training, and we were in the middle of our MOS, which is a military occupational specialty, and 9/11 happened, and it was definitely a wake up.
How old were you at that time?
Same question.
18.
18?
18.
How did you feel during the traumatic event of 9/11?
My story is a little different than everybody else's. I had just learned Michael Jordan was coming back to the NBA, and I was so excited about that. I called my mother and told her to get tickets. And I remember what she said, and it didn't hit. She's like, "Mount, the country's under attack. I'm praying for you. Be safe." I said, "Mom, Michael Jordan's coming back to the NBA. I'm going to need you to go get tickets at the Orlando."
So you're a basketball fan.
Yeah. Michael Jordan was, a person to look up to as a child.
Okay, so he was coming back in,
and he actually pulled his press release back, and it didn't hit me until I was watching. I remember the Yahoo banner, and I seen a plane fly into the World Trade Center, and I look up, and everybody's crying, and I'm like,
"Where were you? Where were you at the exact moment?"
We Fort Sam Houston, in San Antonio, in the middle of pharmacy tech training. We had a 15-minute break, and we had a computer lab, and it didn't hit me till I seen everybody else. And you look around, and then you have to go.
So wait, you joined after 9/11 or before?
See, there's basic training, and then there's your job training.
Okay.
So I had done basic training, and we were in the middle of the
job training.
So it was a total change
How
of
did
mindset.
How did you hear about it? Who told you that? What happened?
We actually we watched the second one. the first one was that literal 15 minutes of the break, and it was on live TV, and then they called everybody back to the classroom, and it happened again, and nobody could believe it. It was definitely very unsettling days for many people. I fortunately was very lucky. Being in college and being in the reserves, I did not have to experience much of the overseas things. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like what I'm doing now, fighting for the veterans who can't fight and don't have the ability to take on this monstrous system of the VA, New York City, DHS.
Okay, so sorry. Before we go over there, how did you came out of the army?
So
how would you?
The reserves. I finished my
reserves.
Yeah, I did the reserves. My station was NAS Jax, and they had it was called the 345th Combat Support Hospital, and there's a detachment. It's in Gainesville, so I actually drilled in Gainesville. Did the time, and
how long were you in the reserve?
4 years. I don't know if we can pause or like tell these stories. Like, so I can concentrate on a certain thing with so many crazy stories.
Get closer
like,
to the mic.
Like me biting, like a man bites dog and all these things. Like I can stay focused on like a track, but there's so many stories to these questions.
No, I got you. Yeah, no problem. I'll get back on track. How did you end up leaving
the army?
Yeah.
They actually.
What did you do? What happened? We gotta be honest with my people. There's no lies, transparency, bro. Whatever happens, it don't matter what it was.
I hear you. Okay, I'm good to go. I've told all these stories. So
how did that go about?
There's two things that happened. I had some legal issues, and it was national news. It was man bites dog. You know, like dog bites man, not news. Man bites dog, news. And it was during Michael Vick. His dogfighting era, so that was the biggest thing on the country's mind. My unit told me not to come back for a while because there was another issue going on in the military. It's called Abu Ghraib, and they had taken suggestive pictures of prisoners. So like the military in the news was bad news, and
that overseas or here?
That was overseas, and it was Marines, but the whole military was getting chastised for it. So the news hadn't found out about me and me being in the military, so they told me to take a break. And then my father also ended up getting sick and passing away, and me having to do that
rest in peace
was a months long, and they told me to take a break, and when I came back they had out-processed me. So that was a surprise. I had
when you came back, they out-process you. What's the meaning of that?
So in the reserves, there is a rule, like if they want you out, or if you don't go to 2 drills, they can put you as an unsatisfactory participant. And there's not much consequence to that besides you're out. And
it's like a red flag.
No, you're out. You don't get an honorable discharge. You get a other than honorable or general under honorable, and it was a surprise. It was a shock.
So how was your was it dishonorable?
No. It wasn't dishonorable. It was general under honorable conditions. So it was right under honorable, and the way there's 2 things: the VBA, which is benefits, and the VHA, which is health. One is just honorable or dishonorable, black and white, and one has gradations. So there was nothing wrong that I did that was a negative effect. It was just an unsatisfactory participant. They just let you go. It's like losing a job.
Like a termination.
Basically.
In a way.
Yes, exactly, yeah. They give you orders and you're out processed. Like you're not here anymore. And that's when I knocked on the door, and they're like, "Are you even still in the military?" I'm like, "What do you mean? You guys told me to take a break." And they're like, "No, we out-processed you." I'm like,
So you were, what, 22, 23?
exactly, 22. 22, yep.
22 years old.
Yep.
What was your next step? What did you do after that?
So, after those two things, I tried to stay in Gainesville. I was actually pretty recognized. People would come up to me and talk to me about the thing that happened with the dog.
I'm still a little lost. I heard you dog bite man, man bite dog, but I don't know what happened. But let us know, because listen, if you go around the bushes, I have a lot of smart people over here. He's lying. He's this. He's that. So let's just be honest.
Okay.
What was it what happened, bro? What happened? What happened?
So funny, man. I had literally a
It's part of our story.
240-pound Mastiff Rottweiler pit bull. I told my dad I wanted a big dog, and he got me one. And my girlfriend came up to live with me, and it's a 2-year-old dog, and it was potty trained. It was trained to go inside the house. Like, it wasn't even a thing back in the day. Like, and to potty train a 2-year-old dog, you have to go back to the psychology of a puppy and grabbing it by its scruff or growling at it or nipping it. That's what the animal psychology said to do. So I did that. And I'm pulling his teeth, and my big dog and my little dog play like dogs. And it's a 200-pound difference. So it had a scratch like this. And I had a real girly girlfriend, and when I nipped the paw, she called her mom, and her mom called the police from Orlando to Gainesville, saying her daughter was being abused, and they kicked my door down, almost shot my big dog. To my ex-girlfriend's credit, she jumped in the way of the guns.
This is while you was in the reserves.
Yep. This was while I was in the reserves, and after this happened, they arrested me for felony animal cruelty. Which, if I probably still have the pictures, I would love to show them, because it's such a disgrace. In Florida, a felony animal cruelty charge carries a 3-year minimum mandatory sentence, and as a 22-year-old, that is such a scary thing.
It'll be a little bit hard to believe, my piece, because a lot of you know and remember him from my prior video when I met him, and now later on, I will show you his service dog. What's her name?
Sadie,
Sadie's back there. We're gonna show you before the podcast is over. But I've seen him given a good treatment and worrying about it's like her partner in life, his partner in life. So it'll be a little bit hard to believe that you actually mistreated an animal due to what I've seen and the way that I see that you treat the dog.
Yes, Sadie is spoiled as.
So they charge you, and what was the outcome of that? Did you do time? Did they?
They put me on this diversion program as long as in probation. At that point, I'd lost everything: the military, the school, the girl, and I eventually just moved in with my uncle back towards Central Florida, Deltona, New Smyrna Beach.
22, 23 years old.
Yeah. And we worked, residential remodeling and learned a lot of stuff about the Bible and about life and everything. My uncle's a great man, very smart.
So after you came out and after all that issue happened, were you detached from the art? Were you still?
No, when you're.
You never looked back?
It's not that you really even could. I guess you can't always re-enlist. And no, I understood at that point, like, that type of structure just wasn't for me. And the reason why I went was for money for school, and that wasn't going to be a thing with my uncle and construction work. So construction and then kitchens were my go-to. It was very difficult to try to explain on a background check a felony animal cruelty charge. And in the two industries where I was able to, like, I eventually got the story to where I'm making the managers of the restaurants laugh, and I'm like, I've overcome this, like I've I've learned how to explain these things and not just to be dismissed. So those things were very influential in my path. I mean, I can see how if I succeeded, I would not be able to fight the fight that I am today. And to be honest with you, that success to me right now, it pales in comparison to the difference I'm about to make.
Got you. So 22, 23, 24 years old, already out of the army, trying to make it there one way or another with your uncle, you said?
Yes. Yeah. We worked as partners in construction 7, 8 years. Learned how to build everything in a house, and kitchens for another 10. Cook a good steak.
Any children?
No children. One wife. That was a hard thing. She had a disability. It's called FAP. Familiar adenomal polyposis. She actually had to have her large intestines removed when she was 14, and although she looked completely normal, that made her very sensitive to all environmental factors. And worked 2 jobs in the restaurant, lived in Daytona Beach.
Daytona Beach, 2 jobs, married, a wife with disability. What was it, 28, 29?
28, 29. Man, time has been distorted because of these things. I would say I left Florida to go to North Carolina. We'll start off kind of there. That's probably like 35.
So, okay, hold on. Before we go to the 35, because we're already on 35. Before that, any tragic events?
Not really.
You had a perfect life?
No. I mean, no. I mean, there's hardships. I mean, that was a time when like gas went up to $5 a gallon. Just going to the grocery store to get peanut butter and jelly was $20. So, and like
really,
the recession hit Florida hard. So, I mean, there were, I don't know. I mean, so, the divorce, but. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't talk about that.
You ain't trying to touch.
Yeah,
you don't want to touch that. You don't want to touch that up, my baby. You don't want to touch. Okay, you did
so
divorce.
I mean that's another crazy story. Listen, I got arrested for talking to my wife through her screen. I got attempted burglary on an occupied dwelling. It's a 10-year charge. Like I don't know how the hell that these things. I get these crazy. Besides, I talk shit to cops. Like
talking through a screen to how.
When you talk shit to cops, they trump up the charges. But literally at her mother's house, I came over and you couldn't come in. But talking to her through her screen, she called the cops and I got arrested for attempted burglary on an occupied dwelling.
On your wife?
Yeah, on her mother's house.
Attempted burglary.
Yeah. And see, her mother had like supervised visitation, like she was a supervisor. She used her kids against her. To like she couldn't tell the truth, but if she said nothing, time would run out on it. But it was such a big charge, they were trying to give me prison 1 year and a day. And I thought of this, not my public defender. I was like, get me a bond hearing because they have to respond to a bond hearing.
Was that the only charge?
That was the only charge.
So prior to that, your only record was the thing with the dog.
I got arrested for like driving on a suspended license, not showing up for a ticket. One time I was walking around Daytona Beach.
We're just being honest. Make sure you hit that like button and do it. We're just being honest.
This is the full. This is
open as we can be.
This is the full story. I was
not going around the bushes. Make sure that nothing is hidden because honesty gets you a long way.
Yes, and I'm not ashamed of any of it.
It's experience, things that we go through. We're not just gonna talk about the hero, the veteran, there's a lot of messed up things that we go through.
I got arrested for carrying a concealed weapon that was a stick.
Where at?
Daytona Beach.
A stick?
Yeah.
You can't carry concealed?
Like no. So there's small closets, those the closet poles.
Yeah.
They come out. Well, roaming around Daytona Beach early in the morning, and beautiful stars and ocean right there. Me and my wife went to go to the beach, and I carried a stick with me. You could encounter crackheads and pit bulls. Like I can run, she can't. And the police literally carrying a concealed weapon, and you wouldn't believe the ridiculousness of it. I think I actually got a judge to say the word in court. He asked the prosecutor, "What the fuck am I supposed to do with this?"
Saying that, you heard? Not too long ago, I got arrested.
And
Insanity.
The prosecutor goes, "Nolo prosse." He's like, "Good choice." But the occupied dwelling one, this is a good strategy. Like I asked for a bond hearing, and he's like, "You're not getting a bond." I'm like, "Listen, I don't care what you say. Get me in front of that judge. Like that's the only motion we can put in at this point that she has to hear." So he's like, "This is so dumb. You're gonna piss her off, and you're going to prison." I'm like, "You're an idiot. I'll talk to her."
Who was saying that?
Like the public defender.
The public defender.
The public defender was telling me this is a bad idea. We get up there, and she is kind of like, "This is weird and stupid." I'm like, "Your Honor, I want to say something. I'm not a felon. I have no record, and she's like, "State, is this true?" And he's like, "He has a resisting back in 2001, and this was I got resisting." So there was another one
about to ask you
with the
about
dog charge. It was
it
was a resisting because I scared the shit out of him with a 240-pound dog. They put resisting, which I told them to wait. I was like, "Don't kick my door down yet. Give me like 3 minutes. I'll come to the door." And they started kicking it.
So this is when they literally started messing up your record.
Yes, yeah. It started with kicking down my door, and I leaned against it. They stopped kicking. My dog's leash was right there. I grabbed it because I know 3 cops coming in. Like I literally have a 240-pound dog. That's not a joke. Paws were as big as my hands. It was 6'2".
Yeah.
How many pounds is that?
85.
85.
So
85.
3 times as like listen, if it was sitting here, it'd be right here.
Okay.
So I said, "You've been banging on the door. You're gonna have to give me a few minutes to calm my dog down, put him in the bathroom." They're like, "Send her out." I'm like, "We just hit a bong hit." Actually, like the truth of the matter is, we just hit a bong hit, and the cops banged on the door, and they're like, I was like, "That's a cop knock," and we were like, "Who called the cops? What happened?" Her mom called the cops, and I told the judge the truth. I was like, "I'm not a felon. I'm a veteran. I still have plans to go back to school. You're gonna take away every opportunity that I have over, basically a family issue. Like this is not a burglary. Like, you got to look at what you're doing." And she asked the state, and they agreed to what they call 1129, which is 1 day less. Because I told her, I was like, "It's not about the time. You only got 2 months left. Either way you go. Like, it ain't about the time. It's about the label. I don't want to be a felon." So she understood. She looked at my actual record, and she's like, "Well, this is pretty unfair." I had some pretty interesting experiences in jail. They misclassified me. They put me in the PBL block.
Was that for this?
Well, so here's the thing. In Florida, if you get like a combination of 3 charges, if you go to jail again, you get classified as a violent felony offender under the Anti-Murder Act or something like that. And it's a domestic, which there was like a neighbor called on us, and there was
on your wife and you.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the concealed weapons charge, and when you there's a restraining order, and there's you get a no contact order automatically, and Valentine's Day happened, so I put a Valentine's Day card out by her stop sign, and I got arrested for that. Wow. So the combination of those 3 charges, and then you get a violent burglary charge. There was a time in Florida where these judges were letting these boyfriends out with no contact orders, and they 8 girls got killed in 4 or 5 months. Like, it was crazy. And they made this law, and I fit these combination of charges that I never got convicted of. You know, it was like you went to jail and like bonded out, and then they were dropped because they had no substantiation. But this combination put me in like the most dangerous pod. PBL means punishable by life.
Were you?
I was like 29, 32.
Were you?
2012.
Were you fighting these cases on your own, or did you have?
Yeah, no, on my own. On my
On
own.
your
Me and
own.
my public defender, who didn't want to do anything I said. Yeah, and
You have family support?
No. They all
Mom,
thought
dad, bro.
they all thought I should learn my lesson. My dad passed away, and at that point, I don't know. I guess my dad was the black sheep, so I took his place, having his name and likeness. And I guess they figured I'd turn out like him, which I have in a lot of ways, and I'm proud of it. I don't think anybody but my dad would stand up and fight the fight that I fought here in New York City. So I congratulate them. You sure taught me my lesson. I'm just like my dad. So yeah, I'm sitting there in jail, like $1,000 bond, for 6 months. There's, like crazy stuff. Like nobody will hire me a lawyer at one point.
Florida?
Yep. I got a violation of probation. I had an ankle monitor, and when I took a shower, the monitor would beep. My probation officer's last official act was to violate me. So
And you went to trial?
Yep, I took the violation to trial. Like I guess when you get on probation and you violate, it's no longer a trial, it's the violation hearing. And if you violate, they can give you the worst sentence. And the worst sentence they could give me was 1 year and a day. And that's why I had to get in front of the judge and tell her, like, what are you doing here? Like, just put me away to put me away? Like, what's going on?
So this is 2930 Florida. You still in Florida?
Yep. So I did my, 2 months more, and I started working in kitchens. I went back to Gainesville, Florida, and what happened there?
Working in the kitchen?
Oh, like COVID started and stuff. Like I was there for like 3 or 4. Oh, I was actually in the circus. I was in Barnum and Bailey Circus for like.
What was you doing there?
Yeah, selling lemonade. It's such a horrible job. Like it is not the animals who are abused in circuses, people. It's the humans.
The human being.
I promise you.
So you were selling lemonade over there?
Bro.
After you came out of jail, right?
It's so funny. You are literally running up and down stands with 20 lemonades on your head, trying to sell them at $10 a piece. And you get $1. You get $1 for each one. They sell you food on the train that's as expensive as like going out to eat. Like you can't even feed yourself.
Wow.
Like how do you get to a store from a train? Like out in the middle of Texas.
Were you making good salary? No.
Lemonade?
No.
It's a circus. How much you pay for a circus?
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
but he sells lemonade. He's not part of the circus.
Exactly. We were the only ones that didn't have a union, and when I mentioned that, they immediately removed me from the circus.
Like, literally, how much did you make selling lemonade? How many lemonades you have to
They're
sell?
like,
It was his lemonades or the circus's
They're
lemonade?
like, sometimes you could sell 100 a show. I'm like, we sell them 15 minutes before. There's an intermission.
Was it for like a store, a truck,
No,
a separate
you're
company, or part of the circus?
It's part of the circus.
You work for the circus.
Yes, for the circus. 1099, I guess 1099. Like, I don't even know. You're not an employee. They don't even do that.
You wasn't an employee.
Yeah,
so
I was like
off the book?
So it was off the book?
I was like a contract. I was like a self-contractor or something. It's crazy how they get you. Like, it's so fun and it's a show, and like, don't worry, we go to all these big cities and you'll make money. Like, it was a cool experience for 6 months, but I wouldn't want to do it much more than that.
Okay, so how did we ended that circus? What happened?
I suggested
Stole
a union.
Lemonade.
I suggested a union, and they were like, "You gotta fucking go."
Suggested union.
The concession stands people had a union. The riggers had a union. The performers had a union. They were all doing fine on the train. We were starving to death, and I was
the
like,
guy that sells lemonade, no union for him. Right?
Dude, it was so
you
funny.
requested and you got fired for that? Like,
Yeah. They were like, "That, get out of here! Like, you guys aren't important enough to have a union, and I don't like. You can't. You're not even allowed to think so. So bye." And they dropped me off in fucking Texas, and I took a Greyhound bus home. And when
you guys were traveling.
I lasted 6 months, and we went to 5 or 6 different cities. And coming back from Texas, we drove through Gainesville. Family did support after that a little bit. Like, it was kind of the younger generation that helped me out, like my cousins and stuff. And I told her, I was like, I got $100 in my pocket, but I think I'm going to jump off in Gainesville. I think I can make it in Gainesville better than back home in Daytona. I stayed there for a few years.
They dropped you over in Texas?
No, in Texas to Florida, and we stopped in Tallahassee, and that college town reminded me of Gainesville and wanted to get back to school. And I still knew I had military benefits left, like the GI Bill and student loan repayment. So I was going to access those things.
Wait, after you left, were you still getting benefits or?
No. When you get out of the reserves, they don't even consider you a veteran.
Wow.
And just a few years ago, did it turn into at least a service member can get some benefits, not full veteran status if you don't do any active duty, unless you're hurt during service. So they actually consider the reserves like the well-regulated militia. So like anybody that, like when they went to war, anybody that had a gun and would come out, and you can't give everybody benefits like that. So the reserve laws go back to like 1900, and they never changed them. So when I went into the VA the first time, I had a hernia. I was working 2 jobs. I was a manager at one, and I had a hernia so bad, like it was in my nutsack. Like I could feel shit going through my nuts, like my intestines. And I would have to lay down and suck back in. And I went to the VA, and I was like, I need help. Like, I'm trying to make it out here. Like, my license is suspended, and I'm in Gainesville, Florida. You can make it, like, in New York without a car. Like, it's small enough, and the public transportation and a bike, like, you can do it. You can work 2 jobs and not have a car and do your thing. Like, but I couldn't do that with this horrible hernia. So I went to the VA. I was like, I've never asked you guys for help. I know I didn't do much. A lady laughed at me.
So they didn't want to help you?
She laughed at me and said, "You didn't do anything. Like, we're not going to do anything for you." I went to the civilian hospital, and I told them the same thing. And they're like, "Oh, we have a program through our county."
But this was many years after the discharge, right?
Yes. I had like lived a life, went to the circus, and then came back through Gainesville. So this was my second time in Gainesville, and I started when they said you didn't do anything. That pissed me off and hurt me so much, because one of my extra duties in the military was to be a duty-appointed retention NCO, and I would actually sign the re-enlist people who are already in the military. It's in-house recruiting. It's called retention. And I would do the ceremonies and the swear-ins and do the contracts, and like you swear in officers and you swear in, NCOs and stuff. Like that's you don't get to continue being a veteran unless that happens, unless somebody does that, and there is a large spectrum. Not everybody is infantry, and I say it's infantry a lot. Like, I didn't do what you did, and they're like, no, we can't do it without you too, and they always give that credit back. But I know I could not. What I did could not compare to what they did, and I know now is where I can do something back for them in the same capacity.
You're still here, but so you wasn't able to.
No. And when they pissed me off so bad, I started reading into it, and I realized like they're so wrong. And when I entered into a grant per diem program, in one of these group therapy sessions. You know, somebody had told their story and their life, and it matched mine so perfectly. Like it was like just like a flashback. The very same thing happened to him, and he, you know, like when you have PTSD, you go through these cycles, and you lose relationships, you burn bridges, and like you know, I don't know. I feel like people who suffer from PTSD suffer from wearing their heart on their sleeve because they don't hold back. I know there
When
is.
did you start suffering from?
You know, it was, if you look at
You recall.
if you look at my life, like how the trajectory of it, I graduated summa cum laude. I was in honors and AP classes. I got into the University of Florida. Everything I did was, I was on the football team. Everything I did was pretty successful. And then what happened to me in the military, my life just went down.
So would you say that joining the military, if you didn't join the military, do you think you would be where you are today?
No. I think that if I would have succeeded the way that I planned to, I would probably wouldn't care very much about people who are suffering, and I would probably be an elitist or rich and just be living a life oblivious to the pain that's out there.
Okay, so how you end up in New York City?
In New York City.
How you end up over here? And
So after the circus, after Gainesville, to be honest with you, we went on a family vacation, and I visited North Carolina, and it was so beautiful. The mountains that are in Franklin, North Carolina.
shout out to North Carolina, my peeps from North Carolina.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Make sure you hit that like button, by the way. Don't forget, my peeps.
I really had a desire to move out there, and although I couldn't see myself moving out to the mountains because that's a whole different environment than Florida, I moved out to Charlotte, the city, and started working security.
Do you remember the company?
Don't tell me it was Ally.
Don't tell me.
Watchman Security, North
Watchman.
Okay, watch.
North Carolina, Watchman Security. It's a great company.
it wasn't
It's
Ally.
veteran owned, and they hire veterans, and they support them 100%.
Watchman Security. You heard my peeps? Check them out.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
They hire veterans.
Yes.
Veteran owned as well. That's a pretty good.
It's awesome. So I rented offices. I wanted to start training service animals for veterans. I had trained her in Gainesville, brought her to North Carolina with me, because it's veteran owned, and maybe just because it's the law, I don't know, but he's very accepting of me having a service animal, and even encouraging of it because they're very alert. So
I don't know if I missed it or I didn't hear. How did you get the?
How did I get the dog?
Yeah.
That was a miracle, actually,
How did you
man.
get the dog? And was it a service dog when you got it?
No, it's not a service dog when I got it. And actually, a tragic thing, a pit bull, a blue pit bull, probably like her same spirit, got stolen from me while I was in jail.
Did you get her here or
In Gainesville, Florida.
So she came with you from Florida?
Yep.
She
In
traveled.
Gainesville, Florida, they're Craigslist.
Traveling like a circle.
And she just came into my life, and we meet. Like, she was trained very well, and then I think I just spoiled her and let her on beds and gave her stuff to eat that
Who
nobody.
dated you? How you found it?
Craigslist. It was so
Craigslist?
amazing. Yeah,
Bought it for free? They gave it to
they
you?
had to move to an apartment that didn't accept dogs.
You was looking for a dog?
No,
So how you end up with a...
I was just
You were just scrolling.
scrolling on
You just-
Craigslist. Yeah, that was it.
That's
And
crazy.
I came across this.
What a
Like,
coincidence.
I was like, "Are you really?" I was like, "I have a backyard, 3 roommates. Like, this dog will never be alone or bored." And they brought it over, and I had this.
How old was she?
She was 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah,
So
so that was like probably
4.5 years.
So it was like 2016, 17. No, 2015, 16. And 16 and 17, restaurant management, a lot of work. Rented a house in Gainesville. Then COVID happened. I worked at a blueberry farm during COVID because you're an essential worker.
Blueberry farm, where was that located?
Oh man, there's some little towns right out of Gainesville.
Gainesville. So you're still in Gainesville.
Yeah.
With the dog.
With the dog, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. After COVID happened, that's when I went to North Carolina. And so from North Carolina, I rented 3 offices. It was like in the middle. It was amazing. It was randomly in the middle of one of the centers of social work in Gainesville. Like this whole office complex was all these different services for disabled people, immigrants, old people, developmentally disabled, like all these things. And I'm like, and a church who was very supportive of veterans, and they had property, and I was talking to them about training service animals on their property. And
so that was your goal, to become a service dog trainer?
Well, I never really thought like I could make a difference training them one by one. And I never think of ideas like that. I try to look at it as a whole, and I found out that it takes the VA so long to get a veteran a service animal, almost 2 years. And it's probably one of the most ridiculous things about the VA. Veterans who have service animals, they don't kill themselves. And I can tell you in 15 minutes how to legally go through what you need to do to acquire a dog, train it to do a task, and make it legally a service animal. And you continue its training for whatever you need.
How much focus would it take to train the service? To make it a service dog?
If you have the ability to keep it with you all the time, if you have a job where you can do that, it's relatively quickly. If you do it consistently every day, like a task, like for anxiety, if I teach the dog to lay on my chest and know when I'm anxious, like if you do that every time you're anxious, they'll smell a chemical out of your nose and know that you're anxious, and they'll either lick you, or if you get on the ground, they will come and lay on your chest. That's a service animal.
Yeah.
By law. And they keep this from the veterans the VA renames it an assistance animal because the federal government can't police the federal government. And so
yours is an assistant.
No, mine is a service animal under the Civil Rights, the ADA Act. It's like the American Disabilities Act for service animals, and it's a very strong law that many people don't know that they could be helped by. Isolation is a real thing, especially for older people. And veterans who are older people. So understanding the power of this law, the breadth of it, and that many people could benefit from it, I actually came upon some paperwork out of VA that was saying that like the projections for PTSD and disabilities was going up so high, and that if they didn't do something to mitigate it, it was going to clog up the VA system. And one of those things I think was suggested was service animals, and it's absolutely right. Like people who have service animals go to the doctor like 40% less. And
so you were the only one who trained the dog to be a service dog?
My dog, yes. And we would do training every day.
Don't you bring them to a professional that?
No. That's the power of the law.
You didn't choose to do it, is what you're
states
saying?
that it's a service
Every
animal?
single one.
No. How do we prove it's a service animal?
Do you have paperwork?
Because it's required in certain places.
No, it is not.
No.
You just have to know the law.
Just have to know the law. So, the law is, and this is how it reads, if you have something that hinders you and disables or hinders you to the point of, what is it? Oh, you got me on the spot. The exact wording. I say this like 10 times a day. It hinders your life to disrupt it, and you can train an animal to do something that helps with that disruption, and that disruption is enough to cause to say it's disabling your life in some way, shape, or form. It is not specific. It is not exact, and there's many things that people go through that we don't talk about, every single one of us. And if we were honest with ourselves, we probably all have something. And you'll never see in another law the word something. Because something means anything. And the American Disabilities Act did this on purpose. Because not only did they write it that vague, then they covered it with your HIPAA privacy. Which means you never have to show paperwork. And it's right there on the law. If you look up the ADA guidelines for service animal, question 17, you are not allowed to ask for paperwork. They don't have any. You're allowed to ask 2 questions. And understanding the law, the confidence in your eyes in answering these questions determines on how you're treated. And it's kind of a shame because ESAs and emotional service animals, they're not trained to do anything. It's just their presence.
What are the 2 questions?
Is that a service animal? Yes. What service does it perform? Alerts. If they ask what type of alerts, they've already violated your rights. Because if I say it's, to alert me that my blood sugar is low,
that's a HIPAA violation.
Then I have diabetes.
Yeah, you can't be selling them your medical home.
See, and if it's an ESA dog, it's very easy. You can buy their paperwork on Amazon for $20. So people who have service animals will not produce paperwork. Because we know it'll make it harder on the next person who has a service animal.
So, what stops me from just getting any dog and just walking anywhere I want and bringing him where I want to be? Just saying it's a service animal because I said so.
There's 2 things.
Just because I answered those 2 questions.
There's 2 things. If your dog is aggressive in any way or it's disruptive, they can ask you to leave. So that requires a certain level of training and behavior. When the law says train it to do something that helps the thing that causes you the disruption to your life, that is up to you. If it's laying on your chest for anxiety, if it is you have depression and it's basically something that will get you up and out of bed because you have to walk it and care for it and have a relationship. There's a lot of things that you can use a service animal for.
Well, I had no idea or no clue how the law works when it comes to service animal, but for those who don't or do, there you go. You have some intel and how it works and what type of questions you might be asked and what are the requirements in order for you to have a service dog or make your dog a service dog.
Yeah, and it says specifically in the law that you are allowed to train it. See, only in the VA does it have assistance dog has to be trained by a certified trainer, which is not recognized by the ADA. It is extremely expensive. It's like $60 an hour. And it ends up being anywhere from $8,000 to $25,000 for a very low-level service animal. PTSD is not a very specialized service animal. They have dogs that can smell seizures 3 days out. I don't know how to train that. That's like a $75,000 service animal. Seeing eye dog.
Were you diagnosed with?
Yeah, with PTSD. Some other stuff. And a service animal was my replacement to the crazy medication they wanted to put me on. As a pharmacy tech, I learned about these things, and the first thing that they taught us was pharmacy cures nothing. It only covers up the symptoms. Now, that's what they said in the Army. I'm not saying there's no pharmaceuticals that don't cure anything, but how they use it and the industry itself, I'm not too fond of it. And I have seen what medications do to people, and they change them for the rest of their life. And
okay, I think we forgot how you ended up in New York City.
How I ended up in New York City? Oh, yeah. So my landlord when I rented these offices, one was for like the meeting of the client, one was for records, and one was big enough for training. The landlord in the offices had such an old lease. It said only seeing eye dogs were allowed, which is terminology from like the 80s. And you could tell because this lease had been copied 1,000 times and you could barely read it. And when I tried to tell them about a service dog and what it was and what my rights were with it, I could bring it to the office. They started following me. They started threatening my landlord, who was like a subletter. He rented half the building. He didn't own the building. So he got real nervous. And it was kind of like I was putting everybody at jeopardy, and that's not what I wanted to do. So there's some other events that go on and on, but my mother's from New York. She's from Brooklyn. I believe she grew up in Canarsie.
When you came here, was she here?
No, she wasn't. I came up pretty much by myself. I did know one person, a very awesome person, and I went straight to the VA. At this point, I had gotten my veteran status and my disability.
You had to fight for your veteran status.
Yes, tooth and nail. There's like 5 or 6 steps, and every single step from eligibility, and then telling me I'm not qualified, and then producing orders, and then having to tell a story, and then having to fill out the paperwork and meet the right people to say the right stuff on the paperwork, and then going through like an examination where they don't even want to hear what happened. All they want to hear is the side effects. And it's like, I've been waiting 20 years to tell this story, lady. You're going to sit right there and I'm going to tell you what happened. Not just what the side effects are. A lot of times that's to keep them from having to file charges on people. So it's a safety net that's kind of strange. But the military is a government to itself. They have their own laws, the UCMJ. So it's kind of how you keep things separate, but it's
so once
it's
you
not
got
system.
your veteran status, what were the benefits? What did you accomplish? What were the positive steps that started coming your way?
So I was able to get VA medical, which is basically like an insurance. I can go to a VA hospital and address any concerns that I have with my body, head to toe, which is pretty amazing. I got a 70% service-connected disability, which allows me a small income, and that was able to, I would say, give me the opportunity to start over.
And you're getting this in New York?
Yes, I'm getting this in New York. It's you get it everywhere. It's not from New York. It's from the federal government. So
you was able to achieve the veteran status when you made it to New York or in Florida?
In North Carolina.
In North Carolina. That's where it started.
Yeah, that's where it started, and there's a very similar fight to North Carolina. It's not an easy thing to deal with the VA. There's a lot of, we call it in the military CYOA, cover your own ass, and circle the wagons, and the way they write a narrative is of course to their benefit, and you don't get to write anything. And so you didn't even, like, they made me feel like I had to build a case to prove something that really I just had to go talk to a benefit specialist and tell them about my life, and they put it on the proper form and the proper way, and they could have saved me from the fight with the VA. I didn't have insurance and a lot of medical history beforehand, so I did need to show, the condition, but the fight to be able to go to the VA was ridiculous. people who work at the VA don't know their own policy and procedure. I'm currently going through that right now.
Really?
Yeah, and if they do know it, they ignore it.
Do people that work at the VA, do they have veterans working at the VA or no?
They do, not a lot, and not after a certain rank. They really usually will not hire anybody above an E8 level or even around E8 because to get to that level, you're really squared away and you will take things personally because you have commanded troops, and to watch how we're treated at the VA, they would not stand for it, and they know it. So, not enough veterans work at the VA, for sure.
Not enough veterans work at the VA, for sure. So, okay, we got the status. Now we got the VA. We was talking about the benefits and the pros and the cons of...
So, I left North Carolina because of the landlord and started over, having these benefits, knowing that I would at least, have food. And coming to New York, there's a video of why veterans should come to New York. Commissioner Hendon, explains all the great benefits that New York has for veterans.
What did you get? Did they give you housing? Did they give you how much you get on the first check?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the disability, I get $1,700 a month.
So did you get that from the beginning or?
No, not from the beginning.
You have to fight for that.
Yes, in North Carolina, after establishing a pattern of care, I was able to have enough evidence to show the VBA. But once I went through the VBA, which is the Veterans Benefits Administration, I realized I don't know if they look at the proof in the background, but I didn't really have to produce anything, and I just told my story, and them understanding the story was the key. And it made me feel like all the stuff I went through at the VA, fighting every single
was for nothing.
Department was, it was ridiculously overkill.
So coming from North Carolina to New York, what was your goal? What was your focus?
My goal was another. I know about the GPD program. The GPD program is a congressionally funded and made program for veterans to restart. I mean, they understand PTSD. We restart our lives a lot, and we'll go to different cities and try it there and see if it works. My mother being from New York was definitely an influence. And New York is New York. It's awesome.
Okay, so when you came to New York, since you already got...
I went to the Manhattan VA. Yeah. And from there...
Was you there in 1700?
Yes. And,
okay. Did you have a house?
No. I was in a car. I was in a rental car. I had actually gotten in a car accident in Florida visiting my mother on her birthday. And going back to North Carolina and then realizing, the office situation and that wasn't going to pan out. It was time for a restart. And having the rental car, being able to travel up here, listening to Commissioner Hendon and all the things that were available for veterans seemed like a solid place to start over really easily.
So you came to New York in a rental?
Yes.
Getting around $1,700 a month from the veteran. Mm-hmm. And how did you look for a job, or were you trying to save those 17 for a couple of months to get a room, apartment, studio?
Well,
you have family here?
No, I do not have family here. I went straight to the VA, and they are the ones who inform me where the GPD program was and where to enter it.
GPD program, for those who don't know, what's GPD?
Grant and per diem, and it's basically a program. It's called transitional housing. They know that someone who's homeless who goes straight to permanent housing, usually, I won't say usually, but a great percentage of the time will end up homeless again. So They offer the services that are needed to get a person, stable enough to where they can handle ups and downs and not have to restart their life all over again.
So they're like a shelter?
It's a residential program, which means it's your home. Shelter is not your home. A shelter is like you're kind of like a guest, and it's kind of like a privilege.
You could get kicked out of easily.
A grant per diem program is supposed to be an entitlement, and
like you own it.
It's not that you own it, but you have the rights to it. Like you have the right to be there.
It's yours.
To be secure and safe, and like it's your space. It's just like renting a place, basically. And it's usually near a VA, so you can get health services easily, and apply for your benefits, and do this in a process where it works. It stabilizes you to go from homelessness to straight to a home, and then have this wait with no connection to social services is not. They've seen as not a sustainable thing.
How long before they was able to provide you with a roof? After getting to New York,
after
the
getting to
rental
New York,
car, went to the VA.
It was fast. To DHS, they immediately take you into 30th. From there, they got me to Borden Avenue rather quickly. What happened at Borden Avenue? It's a decent setup. You have your own like cubicle. You have a door with
How
a lock.
long before?
Is it before 10
A week in the car?
Yeah, a week, 10 days in the car.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Wow, man, we got you. We're gonna show you. We're gonna introduce you to the peeps in a second. You heard? So a week or 10 days in the car, then they was able to provide you with a place. Which
Yes.
You're not complaining too much about it. You said it's
Well, the theory of it is amazing, but the application of it is absolutely horrible. They actually trump federal guidelines with shelter rules and policy, which shouldn't be allowed, because this is specifically made for veterans, not the general population. And the VA tries to say that they have nothing to say about it. Then the shelter says DHS controls everything. DHS says the shelter has their own autonomy. You try to get the VA to step in when there's certain things that happen, and it's a near impossibility to, like, you know how many times I've asked, where is accountability? And everybody just looks at me like I have a third head. Like, you didn't know there isn't any?
hard to find.
So this is a right of veterans. It's a right to participate in these things. My story, I literally got attacked in a restroom by two people. I defended myself. I tried to leave the situation.
Was that after
getting to New York? Borden Avenue shelter.
In the shelter.
ICL, Institute for Communist Living, Community Living. Excuse me.
What was the reason for the attack?
So the reason for the attack, strange in itself. Veterans don't always get along with veterans when they're cooped up.
So it was a veteran that attacked you?
Yes, it was. So there's two. There's two separate times. And the first time the veteran who did was an elderly man.
Everybody there is a veteran?
No. And it's hard to tell who is. Not always hard to tell, but sometimes it is really obvious. It's supposed to be just for veterans. The city has its own program that if you're a service member, see, that's the thing that they changed. If you even went to basic training for one day, you signed up, you were willing, so you deserve something. And that's a great thing, except when those people become more important than the VHA connected service disabled veterans.
So the people that weren't veterans were
getting treated better, or the same. Like, if they broke the rules, they would. How would you explain
They're
this?
gonna break easier than you.
See, the GPD program is very specific. Like, this is going to enrage Borden Avenue to know that they have the right. Like, when I say it's your own space, you literally have the right to have guests and have sex. And it says that's in the program, the Code of Federal Regulations.
You're able to bring a girlfriend, a significant other?
Yeah. When Borden Avenue hears that, they believe they're going to be a riot.
And they're not allowing
They're not allowed to have one guest. They don't even allow volunteers. They don't allow. It's very hard to even get other organizations who provide. They're isolated. I know. Go outside.
Wow. And it's in their policy that you're allowed to.
Yes. We're supposed to have socialization. Like, socialization is one of the main part of the things. Like,
trying to keep you alone.
Yeah, in this program, like, activities is the first thing, and they have $0 allotted to recreation. They actually stole the inside and the outside rec areas.
How they steal it?
Well, the basketball.
They're using it for something else?
Yep, the basketball court on the Building of Occupancy Certificate, the BOC, which any New York officer who works for the Department of Codes and Buildings should go save the veteran basketball court now. Because you can see it from the outside, and you don't need anything else other than that. On the wall, it says the HRA will provide a basketball court for veterans. They put up a fake exit, emergency exit, over the entrance to the basketball court, and uses the basketball court for a shed and parking.
For a shed and parking, so it's outside.
Yep, and they said too many drugs got through, and this might be like 20 years ago that this happened, but they built a new 20-foot fence in front of it that's 100 yards of parking lot. Like, that's not where the drugs are getting through. It's just an excuse to keep us corralled, to have less staff, to look over more people, and to lessen the budget.
How many people are there in that shelter?
There's supposed to be 154 grant per diem recipients. There's only 100 right now. There's 254 in the building, which means there's 154.
100 extra.
150, yeah. Then they're not even supposed to have more than 200, or they're supposed to have a special license. I don't think they have that special license.
So what do they have? They got bunk beds? They got rooms?
It's a cubicle that's 6 by 9. You have 3.
So like a cell?
Yeah, it is a cell.
It's describing a jail.
It's exactly what it is.
When you started talking about, it's like your home. It's just, they built a wall. They took the. I'm like, yo, they turning it into a jail cell? What
see, the GPD program can range from a variety of factors. A lot of them are in shelters around the country. Some of them are studios, like the GPD program I was a part of in Lake City. It was your own studio apartment. So in New York, obviously, you don't have the space that, Florida does. So they at least built walls and cubicles so you had privacy. It is very much like a cell. I've even heard that it's minimum security prison.
So back here in this shelter where they took off the basketball court and they did all these things.
For months, they had zero recreation. They don't let them use the library or the computers.
Another question: male only?
Male only, yes. The shelter used to be male and female. Like, you can, when you search it, it says male and female, but they send females to. Most females are in hotel-style shelters. They're not in.
Yes, that's what I was about to ask you. So, what about the female veterans?
They go to the general public, with the other.
Is it better or worse?
It's better. It's usually 3 to a large hotel room.
So they give a better environment for the female veterans?
I don't know, because if you look up the statistics, there's more police calls to the women's shelter than the men's. So it's homelessness has a lot to do with mental health, and putting veterans with the general mental health. People with mental health issues and homelessness and addiction issues is not a great combination.
Yeah, it's a struggle to be in. And tell me a little bit about the conditions. How did they feed you guys? Is it clean? Are they professional? Are they?
So they feed us. The food is
3
not
times a day.
3 times a day. The food is very much like, school
Okay.
food and jail food.
Same shit.
I've gotten the same chicken patty and
It's the same shit.
so they can't put a combination of a meal together. Like they don't know to give you bread, eggs, and meat at the same time. It's like you get yogurt, sausage, milk. It's weird, It's like they don't know how to put a meal together.
We have a lot of veterans in there that are they starving? Like
I'd say they're
some people eat a lot. One tray won't do shit. I'll need your tray, and I'll buy your tray, and I'll buy.
Listen, some of these shelters, these meals come with the calorie count on them, and it's like 185 or like 240, and they give you 2 of them, and then they count the milk and the sugary juice as the other
So
calories.
if you don't have a friend or a family member that takes care of you,
If you don't
you're
have-
struggling there.
Yes, very much so. Whether you're a veteran or not, if you don't have your benefits, you are stuck at the mercy of them almost totally. Laundry wise, and that's what happened. Going back to that, just standing in the laundry line, a little disagreement. The guy thought he could grab my throat, try and choke me.
So there are fights in there.
Yes.
Yeah, but my veteran peeps.
Well, see, here's the thing: when you don't provide,
Oh yeah,
them
we have
the
people that are
recreation.
in alcohol. We have people that have drug problems.
Well, not
we
just
have
that.
people-
When you
mix
take
them up together.
when you take the recreation away, you mix it with caseworkers who don't do what they say. You leave veterans with nothing but to do to ruminate over their own problems and then deal with each other and have no money to go outside and do anything. It's not like you can even in New York. Like you gotta have money to sit down in AC. Like who's kidding who? You gotta buy something. So they're stuck there. A lot of them, are have trouble with mobility. In that Long Island City is a great city, but it's still like a half a mile walk from anything. So a lot of them are they just don't even leave.
And from time to time, fights break up. You was about to tell us about an incident that you had. What happened?
Yeah. We veterans, we all have our pride and misunderstandings, and living with people for that close to quarters and that long, he thought he could cross legal bounds, and then
Did you guys get into a conflict?
yeah, it was almost like over nothing, and it's basically just trash talk, and then he thought he could try and choke me without consequence. He then sent his nephew after to attack me, and his nephew proceeded to get another guy drunk.
So his nephew's in the shelter too.
Yeah, see, I actually found out he got his own place, which is, I don't even know if he's a veteran. I think that
That was going to be my next question.
him being from Florida and him,
He's from Florida as well.
it's so funny. All of us in this incident are and were, Floridians.
Shout out to my Floridian peeps.
I think that the person who, with the initial attacker, was so close with staff that he knew he could get his nephew up here because nothing about this guy said military. I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong, but that would be my guess.
Did he attack you, and why did he do that?
This is a random thing that happened to me. Why I thought was just to start an incident to get me removed from the shelter. I found out, I believe this is the truth. I don't know how random and coincidental you have to get, but another veteran who recognized my service animal, not me necessarily, but he did, like I didn't recognize him, but he recognized my service animal and knew what happened to the person who had the service animal. And he stopped me on the subway. He said, "Did you know that attack was set up by the director of social work?" Now, I have a recording of that social work director, telling me I deserve to be spit in my face and telling my private medical and housing information because they do health checks on us. They're supposed to do them once an hour. This was the third time in 15 minutes. And I had the gall to go up to her and go, "Do you guys communicate? Because this is the third time in 15 minutes. This is pretty annoying. We're trying to take a nap, do our own thing."
So it was a setup to get you out?
if you get into a fight, they can remove you. Now, there's
Both persons or the aggressor?
This is what's messed up. They actually removed the victim.
Really?
Yes, which means they should have removed them if I was the one arrested for
attacking. Wait.
So it doesn't make sense for me.
So you're the aggressor or the victim?
They put me as the aggressor because I defended myself.
So you were the aggressor and they removed him?
No, I was not the...
You were the victim.
I was the victim. I was using the urinal. I literally had in my hand, and I started getting hit in the back of the head. And I turn around, I try to leave. The door opens, towards me, and they're still hitting me. I got to turn around. I turn one of them around. I got him in a chokehold.
Who was hitting you?
2 people. The nephew of the initial attacker and the guy, he got drunk.
They came out of nowhere and started.
Nowhere. Like, it was 3:30.
In the bathroom.
It was 3:30 in the morning. In the bathroom. And I had reported to my caseworker that I'd heard, like, a plan to attack me in the bathroom was brewing. I didn't do anything. In fact, they offered, to transfer me to a civilian shelter, which isn't, like if somebody's threatening to attack, you remove the ones who are threatening.
Yeah.
You don't.
So they wanted to remove you.
So DHS policy is to remove the victim because I guess the fear of retaliation in New York is a lot different. It's a different style. Like they'll send people after. They have people like there. I don't understand the mentality of it. But they say you're more likely to be attacked if you stay at the shelter that you were attacked at, which just reinforces that the people who attack people, if they don't get arrested, they can get away with it.
Did they end up removing you from the shelter?
This is so funny. This is what we still don't know. We've gotten 2 official statements. There's one, they removed me because I requested it. So for a year, they've ignored that request, and they've all of a sudden are trying to honor it. Not by allowing me to go back to my GPD program, but to a hotel shelter, which would be under the same policies, not the grant per diem provide. I wouldn't be able to have my own space or have guests or have an intimate partner. So, although it's a better environment, it still doesn't provide for the same rights and benefits that a GPD program would. Not that Borden Avenue lets them have those rights anyways. But because they had 2 people, and when I put him to sleep, he fell and he hit his head on the wall on the way down.
So did you choke him out?
Yeah, I put him to sleep. Put him in a sleep roll. Oh. So, and that was the most merciful thing I could do. In New York, it's not a stand your ground state. You can't really defend yourself. And, in Florida, stand your ground. I could kill you. And be totally legit. So
different ballgame.
I did the most. I didn't throw one punch, and I showed the police officers. I can't wait to get that body footage. If anybody wants to do a FOIA request on Mount Lacey for October 12th,
I got you, Lacey. I got you.
Oh man,
I got
awesome.
you on that. Zays, I got you on that too. So you but weren't they 2?
There was 2, and because they had
2 to sleep.
Oh, the other one seen the other one getting put to sleep, and he didn't want none, so he let his friend get choked out, and then I found out later that he robbed him.
Wow.
So they got this guy drunk because,
who did you put to sleep? The nephew or the uncle?
No, neither. The uncle sent the nephew. The nephew didn't believe he could do it on his own, so he conned a guy into doing it with him. And they did it by saying that I was a racist and wife beater and maybe even a sex offender. I don't know how they convinced this guy to do this. Because later, even though there was a no contact order, like the one place on earth that it doesn't apply is in the emergency room of the VA. And we both randomly ended up there. He came up to me, apologized, said, "Hey man, I spit in your face. You choked me out. It's like the military. We take off our BDU tops and we'll go fight, and we'll put our BDU tops on and be soldiers again,
Okay. So after this fight,
he didn't continue pressing charges because he told me he told me everything. He said They came and they got me drunk.
Set up by the supervisor.
See, that information didn't come till later, and that it's going to be a little bit harder to connect because it was random, but so coincidental. It's hard that anybody could come up with that lie. So the two younger guys attacked me. The nephew did not get put to sleep. The other guy did. The nephew robbed that guy of $40, a vape, pack of cigarettes, and I think his wallet. And he told me this in the hospital. He's like, I'm not going forward with the charges. Like, don't worry. Like, I won't show up to whatever the state wants. And I told him I don't want to press charges. The state would not drop it. They took it to the very limit of the speedy trial limits and then just dropped it. Once I had been exonerated, Borden Avenue would not take me back, and they should have took me back immediately anyways.
So they took you out of Borden Avenue after the fight?
Yes. And they actually had me
Where did you go?
The street.
The street.
Long Island City and Hunters Point.
With the dog?
With the dog. Is much safer
Than in there.
Than a lot of shelters. And even in there, like, to be honest with you, it just got too cold and snow.
So you're trying to tell me that the streets are more safer than a lot of the shelters that they have for our veterans?
100%.
Because of the people that work there, or because
there's many reasons. One, there's no accountability. The workers do provoke and antagonize
violence.
I would say people against each other, and like with because it's a clinical facility, like, you know, there's mental health issues, and you do that like a game, it's going to end up.
Yeah, there's a lot of mental health issues. There's a lot of, you know what I mean, people that need taken care of, but since the people that work there are not really there to help, you know what I mean, they kind of like.
It's almost like a TV show to them. It feels like it's like they know what to do to trigger certain people.
So the shelter, the veteran shelter, kicked you out to the streets with your dog.
Well, first, this is what's so weird. When I went to the VA and said, where am I assigned to, they said a hotel. And I was like, what hotel? And this is now the hotel they're saying that I requested 2 days before the incident. They actually transferred me out to, it's called 6500 Jerome Avenue. It's like at the top of the Bronx, and it's a shelter it's dangerous enough to house a
194, something like that.
It has a DHS police station in it. No, like, not many shelters have a police station in it. So they inactivated my city FEP so I couldn't look for housing on my own or have a real estate agent look for me. They sent me to the furthest, and I think this was more. It was the furthest and probably most. It's the two combination. It's far and dangerous. You ain't gonna get back from there. And I learned some things. I learned if you're assigned to a shelter, the police can't trespass you. And I learned that you don't have to accept a bed or a room. You can live in their waiting area. And when you become a fire hazard, they have to transfer you to another shelter, and you hope that it's better.
So how long ago did this happen?
I spent 5 months on the street. From October to February. I guess it really started snowing around, and I couldn't.
October 2023.
Yep.
So February this year.
Yes. I stayed under a construction site cubbyhole.
With the dog.
With the dog.
You were 5 months. 5 months in the streets.
5 months in the streets.
With the dog, sleeping in construction sites and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Were you still getting the benefits at least?
Yes, you always retain your benefits. I mean, even if you go to jail, that's a beautiful thing. They save them for you. So the benefits can't be taken away. So, there might be certain circumstances they can, but they weren't, and they did sustain me. It's very expensive being homeless. Like,
tell me about it. So after those 5 months, what got you off the street? What happened? What was the miracle? What move did you make
It was actually one of the construction workers. One of the guys in the union, Mark. He seen what was going on, and he offered me into his house. And from there, I went back to DHS and was hoping to get reassigned a safer shelter. I didn't. They sent me back to Jerome, and I learned at that point that you have the right to shelter, and then that's the city law, and these shelters have to abide by this in the way that police are city employees, so they can't. This is a right that they can't violate. It's like a city, like it's like immigrants. If it's a sanctuary city and that's the city policy, they don't hand them over to the feds. So I learned the limits of this legal designation and challenged it. I challenged it. I wasn't 100%, but after the cops berating me for 20 or 30 minutes, I was like, if you could do something, you had already done it. So you're not scaring me. And I'm pretty sure I have the right to keep staying here. If they want to transfer me, tell them to go ahead and do that.
So from January, February, you've been in the Bronx?
No. So
after the 5 months that you was in the streets,
they made that my permanent shelter. And unless that if you leave the shelter, that's...
We got you. You're gonna come right now. You wanna be on camera, please?
If
Look.
You're assigned the shelter. If you're not transferred, you're assigned that shelter for the year. You have to get them to transfer you.
Okay.
And a lot of times, if you don't want to be transferred and you. She just knows she should be doing that. Come. What? Stop. So it was funny. I stood down the police on knowing the law and knowing the city policy and calling their bluff and not letting them get me to a place where they could medically incarcerate me, which is an emotionally disturbed person, and they'll put you in a psych ward, which they very frequently do with no other cause than the worker going, he was belligerent. That's just a word they signal. So backing down the police, then if the police wouldn't remove me, of course DHS police couldn't remove me because they're the ones who are supposed to enforce that.
We're talking about the new shelter.
No, this is 6500 Jerome.
Before the 5 months.
No.
You were 5 months homeless.
Yes, 5 months on the streets.
Now you found another shelter, or you went back to the same one.
No, here's how it works. They assign you a shelter
for a year.
And they have to transfer you. That shelter has to transfer you for you to go to another shelter. And if it's a bad shelter, oh well.
So after the 5 months, they assigned you one.
They assigned me the same one. The reason why I didn't go to the shelter because I knew it was dangerous and far away from the Manhattan VA, so I couldn't get to my doctor's appointment. So I just chose the street, and they still kept that one, when I went back because it was cold. So I learned that they can't remove you.
If they held the spot for you.
They exactly. They don't hold a spot, but you can wait until there's a spot open, I guess. And if you have medical conditions and it's not medically suitable for you, they try to get you to do a bed refusal, and that allows them to remove you. If you don't sign that, and you actually have to take the paper and go, I'm not refusing a bed. This is not suitable. They don't have a this is not medically suitable form. You have to actually write it down. Then they're in a pickle because you've written the truth and you're not refusing. you're saying it's not suitable. So they can't remove you. And if you don't sign their paperwork and take a bed and you stay in their waiting room, you become a pain in their ass.
Okay.
And then they'll transfer you out of, we need this guy out of here. But there's a lot of people in the shelter who like want to transfer, like they'll put 18 and 20-year-olds, which should be in a youth shelter, in a regular grown-up shelter, and they're like, hey, I'm scared, I want to leave this shelter, and they won't transfer. So only if you stand up or complain about something will they transfer you out of spite. They won't transfer you for your benefit.
Okay, so 5 months later in the streets, we're back. They gave you another year. We're talking about the same.
So once I learned that from Jerome, when they transferred me to subsequent unsuitable shelters, I knew what to do. So for 5 days, they sent me to shelters they knew I would not be able to exist at with my service animal safely and healthy. They didn't care that there was no sleep. They didn't care that it's a destructive and humiliating process. And it's a big network that, I don't know how to say that.
Do you think the people that are working there are doing it for the money or actually to help?
Oh no, they're definitely not doing it to help. I think that saying you're a social worker may feel good to people who aren't in that situation. I think social work is like an epidemic on this problem, because they're the bottleneck to everything. And if you have anything to do, if you have any appointments, if you're not right in front of their face, they're not working on your case. And there's things that absolutely cannot get done unless they do them, and unless you are very compliant and not at all and over an exaggeration, kiss their ass, they will just leave you there.
So after those 5 days,
I got to a shelter called Jack Ryan, that was in Chelsea. That was a decent situation and setup. It was very centrally located, so I could get to the VA. It was easy to get to.
you're saying it was like you're not there no more.
No, I'm not there anymore. They transferred me from there to the middle of Brooklyn. That's
why they transferred you.
Why did they transfer me?
Did you ask for it? Or?
No, I definitely did not ask for it.
Did you do something wrong? Or did some other incident happen?
I record the staff doing things wrong. Like they would not call the EMT for somebody who was having a psychotic...
Audit them. You audit them.
You audit from the inside.
I audit them. And because of my training with pharmacy in the military, I know my rights and I know HIPAA. And HIPAA is the reason why, if that is my domicile, I am allowed to record. What I can't do is I cannot record patients because of HIPAA. And that's civil. That's not
personal information.
Yeah, that's civil though. That's still not criminal. So they can't, even if you
Can you give me an example of something that you recorded that one of the staff was doing wrong?
Okay, so they wouldn't call the EMT for somebody who was requesting it, and he was obviously having a psychotic break. He's sitting there with his head in his hands on the floor like this. Please call me an EMT. I think he's bleeding too, or he had blood on him somewhere. He was very, he was unkept. He was obviously in a rough situation, and I'm like, what's going on here? Why don't you call the EMT? He's asking you to call the EMT. He's like, oh well, they said the supervisor said not to. He said he could call it on his own. I'm like,
they don't have doctors in there, like.
There is a nurse there, and after I recorded this incident, and 20 minutes later, No, that was another incident where after this incident, the nurse responded like they got off their butt. But this incident that I recorded, once I heard that they would not call the EMT, I walked into their little office and picked up the phone and dialed 911 myself.
From their phone.
I'm like, this is not up to you. If somebody needs 911, they are the sole decision maker in them needing 911. Like, who the hell do you people think you are?
So you picking up the phone, calling for
They didn't like that. And then I picked up my phone and started recording. And they're like, don't record us. It says you can't record us. I'm like, those are our HIPAA rights that you use to keep you from being accountable from doing shit like this.
Record you,
You know, like, I'm like, and I had a couple of those incidences that I had one, the program director at BRC, Bowery Residence Committee at Jack Ryan, removed an immigrant that they had there for 2 years. And during COVID, like, there has never been a time where immigrants got so many benefits and they didn't help him with anything. He was from Spain. He had been here for 15 or 20 years. I guess he lived in Miami. I don't know his whole story.
Is that an issue that you guys are dealing with in the shelters? Like, are they giving more are they prioritizing the migrants? Or are they mixing you with the veterans?
Yeah,
yes, they are. With the migrants?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I don't know how they decide who gets to go. Like, it seemed like because he was in America for 15 years that, you know, he could kind of not look so much like a migrant. Like, but they didn't do anything. He didn't even have food stamps. 2 years. All through COVID. He didn't get any of the stimulus checks. Nothing. They did nothing for him. They never showed him one place. They never helped him get his documents, his birth certificate, his anything.
But they just gave him the shelter.
Yes. But the giving him the shelter wasn't the problem. He was a good citizen. Like, he was not a person.
He was a good person.
He was a good person, and he didn't actually have any mental health issues, except he was depressed because he'd been there for so long and been told stuff that didn't happen. He requested a transfer, and I told him, I was like, stop. I was like, go put it in writing. You're canceling that transfer. You have no idea how good this shelter is. They're going to transfer you to someplace horrible. Stop it. And it says it right there in DHS policy. A person who requests the transfer can cancel the transfer anytime before leaving the building. And they scared him into leaving the building. But he was still assigned to that shelter. And I said, as long as you go back into that building while you're still assigned.
So where?
So the program director came. Oh, they called the police to remove him, and I called the police on them making false police reports. So the police didn't come for hours, and they didn't know why. And I go, because I called the police on you. He's breaking no law. You have no right to remove him. He canceled it. There's an administrative process, and you guys are just trying to bully him out of the shelter.
Was that the best shelter out of all the other ones?
It was. Location-wise.
Okay, so you were in that one. After that one,
but wait, let me tell you what the program director did because the police didn't come.
Go ahead.
She and 4 staff members encircled him, which I have the video and I'll post it at some time and share it.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I could get a couple of videos of things that he's spoken to us about. So I'll put it in the video for you, my please. So we could kind of like get his point of view with a video. So
they couldn't understand why the police weren't coming. And they took it upon themselves to remove him physically. And he had, 3 bags of stuff. So one would grab a bag of stuff and go this way, and he would go get it, and another would grab a bag of stuff, and they would inch him down. And I'm sitting here recording, and they're like, he's recording you doing this. And it's the program director. And when she sees me recording, she stops it. And she
stops the recording?
She stops doing the action.
She stops doing
and being physical with him. or allowing the staff to be physical with his stuff, and he gets his stuff back, and then she clears the room so nobody can record. And this is just sickening. It's like,
where you at right now? Are you still in that one?
no, I'm in 988 Myrtle Avenue. It's Samaritan Village.
How is it there?
It's where good lives.
That's where you are now?
Yeah. There's a mentality you have to understand that when people are working harder not to do their job and enforcing rules like a corrections officer when they're supposed to be a custodian of benefits and getting these people to stability that is so diametrically opposed, it changes humans into, I don't want to say animals, but after being in these shelters for so long, you become subhuman. Like it's like a mentality that everything you add, like the only thing you can get without a problem is toilet paper. You can't, like, if you ask for soap or a pillow or a sheet or a towel or
there's always a but. There's always an issue.
Later. Well, I got to do this. I'm busy. It's lunch. I'm on vacation.
And
like, you're standing right there.
Who audits them? Who stays on
Oh
top?
my God.
Who makes sure? Who holds them accountable?
So they go by this thing called the Callahan Law. And it was a guy named Callahan, and he would rather stay on the street than in the shelter. And right before he got his benefits, he died. And they did this big, huge investigation because I don't know how it became popular or too much of the history. But what they do is they kick the shelter residents out and only inspect the building. And the Callahan Law is really the most important part of it is the treatment of the residents, and they kick them out like at 4 or 5 a.m.
And they just inspect the building.
Yeah, and you're not allowed back in. You're not allowed to get anything. It's like you're locked out. And I've never tried to oppose that, which I was going to this next Callahan inspection.
The Callahan Law. These are inspectors that, like we were saying, they inspect only the building.
Well, there's a lot
they kick everybody out.
There's a lot of criteria, and a lot of it is the condition of the building. In rats and roaches, bugs, bed bugs, hot water, cold water, soap.
You guys have bed bugs in there?
There's some shelters that do.
Shelters for the veterans with bed bugs.
And see, there's a veteran shelter that holds a population of 154, and there's over 300, 400 veterans in all these other shelters. So it's not, the veterans have to go through, this without their people. They're not around other veterans, which is, I would say, harder. So there's the Callahan inspection, and they're supposed to go over, the numbers, how many people they're getting out and getting housed, because they're getting an ungodly amount of money. Somewhere up to, $4,000 a month for each bed. I don't understand it, but I think they charge for all the services of the nurse, the case management, and the therapy.
Who are they charging?
I don't know. They just put it in that they provide these services, and they're never available. I don't want to say never. Sometimes, definitely not in any timely fashion or at any type of good to you. Usually they're used against you. Like the nurse will say, yeah, he's EDP, not, let's talk about this. So they charge for these services, and that's why each bed costs so much money. Or cost the city so much money, and then they don't provide the services.
Cost the city, which means it comes out of our tax money.
Yes.
So all these things is the people who are funding it, and these supervisors, these top-notch top heads, are doing whatever they want with the money.
Well, I don't see.
He needs a sheet. He needs soap. He needs deodorant. He needs this. He needs that. Yeah, I'll give it to you later. Yeah. Meanwhile, we have a big dogs who getting all this money so they can provide it to these veterans and to these people that are in these shelters, so they are well taken care of. But all that money is not going to them.
And not just that, like how they use the money. It's that they're creating a system of rule enforcers rather than benefit, suppliers and get them stability and get them housing. They want them in those shelters. They don't want those shelters to close. They're trying to create a new medical welfare class.
It's another circle that they'll keep they'll keep you in that bubble there.
Listen,
and it's hard for you to get out of there, because they want you there because they make money from you.
There's at the shelter I'm currently at, there's almost 200 people. They get one person out a week.
Kick or they?
No, like a housing. They find housing for one person a week.
So that's 4 person a month in a place of 200 people.
So that's a perpetual. You'll never empty that shelter. You'll never empty it. So it'll never close. And this is what...
They don't want that either.
No, and this is what nonprofits are doing, is they are exponentially expanding their assets by keeping people in this loop, because if you get transferred, then you have to restart the paperwork all over again. And the process starts all over again. You're a new case manager. You're in a new part of town. Everything is now changed. So when you're getting close, they could upend your life without a care in the world. They purposely do the administrative process as something that you can't deal with until you're at the new shelter, and you can ask for a fair hearing, and then it's not a fair hearing. Like, it's not by evidence. It's by opinion. It's a kangaroo court. Thank you, Oppenheimer. Is that movie? I got a great understanding from them. Like, oh my God, that's what they're doing. The ombudsman is like, it's like a distraction. Like, these places need to be put injunctions on them and be brought into court because they have actual contracts, and it's a breach of contract. And that's what needs to be happening. And that's what they're saying you're doing. You've breached your contract, so now you're gone. But wait a minute. There's all these services that and you have these responsibilities, and you breached your contract. But we have no say. Like, you call the ombudsman 72 hours later, they call you back. But if you're getting transferred unjustly or illegitimately, and you want to dispute it, the administrative process is longer than the actual time it takes to get you out. So there is no really fair play there. And that's just the way it is. Like,
people, these are the veterans that are stuck in the system.
Well, that's everyone. And the veteran shelter is a little even more nefarious, I would say. Is in this grant per diem program, not only do they get the city money, they get the federal money, and they keep the veterans in the same process. It is easier for veterans to get back into the veteran shelter. Not me, supposedly, but I've seen people do horrendous things and get right back in.
Why not you?
Because I record. And I stand up for the veterans. Like the searches.
He wants to hold them accountable. Like he wants to have a saying in it. So, he's not just going to bow. You know what I mean? When he sees something wrong, hey, that's wrong. Most of the people don't say that because they don't want to lose their spot. They don't want to.
So he's willing to risk his.
Yes.
He hit the streets for 5 months because he don't want to be where they wanted him to be. You know what I mean? Because it was going to be worse. They were going to put him in a worse place than being in the streets. You know what I mean?
So because I record and I stand up for people, like one of the things that I did that I'm kind of proud of is I called the police on these searches because it says inspection and search, and to have a search you need a warrant, and even police know that. So an inspection is something that's in plain sight, and they're going into these cubicles that are ours. And
they're just searching.
They're doing jailhouse searches like every square inch, and they were doing it to people who were already clean, who they know it would pass. And then when they had something against you, or they knew something about you, because some people still have recovery issues, and they do let drug use go on in there freely. If you don't cause any problems, you can use as many drugs as you want in there.
Wow.
just don't record us doing nothing or sleeping in the middle of the night, and don't challenge us, and just sit there.
Don't expose them.
Don't expose them. But if
you do all the drugs you want, get drunk.
And see, that's a dangerous place for veterans because they're getting an income.
How are you supposed to like get better at that place and
that's
come out of there?
That's what
get housing, find a job or part time or.
And see, these people could have the most satisfying job in the world. Helping people gives you joy, and to watch them work harder not to do their job than to do it is an amazing thing. It's like, what are you even doing here? And then they'll work so hard to enforce these rules. Like, I've never had 5 people come around me and be like, we want to help you. I've had 5 people come around me and go, stop doing what you're doing. And I go, no, I have the right to. And those, waste an hour, get you all kinds of upset, call the police. Like, they want, like, something they try to do as in, like, to get you to behave.
I have one question.
No problem.
Have you been witness of any overdose in those shelters? Or have you heard of any stories of people overdosing in shelters?
Yes, and
does that happen?
Yes, and in the veteran shelter specifically, probably one every 2 or 3 weeks. There's video that we have of people being rolled out in body bags, and it's horrible because the veteran shelter specifically has more income than any other shelter per capita. Like they get benefits. A percentage of them does. Not a lot of people in homeless shelters have disability or SSI or a pension or something like that. And those who do are usually elder, and you don't have a lot of elder, like overdoses. So they estimate over 100,000 drugs a month, $100,000 of drugs a month go through the veteran shelter. There's supposed to be drug testing. They spend $1 million on security with Allied. Get a drug dog. Allied, I don't know how you could let that happen.
$100,000 in drugs going to the veteran shelters. 2, 3, and 4 every what? Come out of there on overdose?
I would say a veteran every 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know the exact numbers. I know it's way too many.
Yeah, we could say 1 or 2 per month come out of the veterans shelter overdose, OD.
It's a thing that's looked over. Drugs are done in the bathroom and in the cubicles, and they can smell it. And
they don't try to prevent it.
No, and they used COVID as an excuse because they couldn't kick people out. Then now, actually, what they're doing at the veteran shelter is, I don't know if this is to curb it or they're kicking the veterans out from 9 to 5, and it's a clinical facility which you don't kick people out who have mental health issues. You don't kick them out. You allow them to go through their stuff. There's MICA shelters. Like I'm in a shelter now that doesn't kick the people out. So they're actually, in a way, getting treated better than the veterans and are getting housed for a third longer of the time. Like there's people who can stay in all day, 24 hours. Veterans can't do that right now. And all they need is something from their psych going, yeah, he has PTSD. He needs to isolate. When he needs to isolate, he needs to isolate. You let him sit in his room.
Of course.
And that was one of the last things that I was teaching them. But, what I was saying about the police is I actually called the police and had them educate Borden on what the difference of what a search and an inspection was. And the police actually went in and was like, look, I can't go in there and search your stuff right now. What makes you think you can? What this guy is saying is right. If they say no, the answer is no.
You need a warrant for a search, and what they should be doing is a quick inspection with you there. You know what I mean?
And if you say no to it, what they'll do is when you leave, they'll come into your place and ransack it. And I have a recording of that.
Well, we're gonna have a lot of recordings because we're gonna go through a lot of videos, my peeps, and it's been a great conversation with my guy, the bearded veteran.
Veteran.
Yes, expect more from him. This was just like a 0.1% of the things that happen in these shelters. Besides him, we will be having other guests with their stories, where they're going to come and confirm what he told you, what he told us that is happening in these shelters in New York City and all across the country, my babe. They're doing our people dirty, man. They're doing our veterans dirty.
Yes,
and it hurts me to hear from him that he was more comfortable in the streets than in one of those shelters that take all these millions of dollars to take care of our people. So please stay tuned in. Love and respect. So we got the bearded vet. Hey, yo, what a dog. Let me get the dog. Let me show the dog to the people. Wake up. Come here. Sleeping. We're sleeping. Now he's going to wake up, my peeps. Yeah? So, my peeps. Love and respect. So we got.
Don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe.
You heard. Hit that like button. Subscribe. Pull up to ZZ TV. Pull up to the People's Podcast TV. Pull up to Cartoon Pete TV. Pull up to ELY'S TV. You heard the bearded veteran.
Still with the same struggle and fighting the same battle. The white man is hiding the way out. Are you gonna make it out? The rich is getting richer. Are you gonna make it out? The poor is getting worse. Are you gonna make it out? The middle never move. Are you gonna make it out? It's a manipulated society. The rich is getting richer. Are you gonna make it out? The poor is getting worse. Are you gonna make it out? The middle never move. Are you gonna make it out? It's a manipulated society. Religion, speech, press, assembly, petition. Yo, my peeps. Don't give me orders, you don't tell me what to do. No, I don't need to obey.
Subscribe to the People's Podcast.
Subscribe to the People's Podcast.
Lock me in